past year, I've struggled with finding out what I'm passionate about. And for the past few months, I've struggled even finding out what I should do for my Greenstone. But I stand before you today feeling excited, confident, and have a clear understanding of where I'm going with my life after grad. But it wasn't always like this. I'm going to tell you a story about how I got stuck in a routine, how I escaped it, and how I learned to follow what makes me happy. It started 2 years ago. I was at a point in my life where I felt stuck. I was finishing the end of grade 10, and I wasn't happy with my life. I had a schedule that never changed, working every day after school, doing the same things with my same friends every weekend, and my classes rarely changed. I wasn't overcoming any obstacles, as there were none to overcome, and the kids in my school were angry and bored, as I was at the time. I was wondering, when would my life actually begin? And then something happened. My mom and I were at a dinner party, and we were talking about traveling, and she said, "We should travel somewhere. We should go somewhere for a while." At first, I didn't take her seriously because going away on a long vacation seemed completely unrealistic. But when we got home, I realized she was serious. I couldn't imagine my life outside of my small northern town in Canada that I grew up in. Originally, we only planned to go for 6 months. I was way too scared to leave behind my whole life and my friends and my family. But I knew that going away was what I needed and what I wanted and what was best for me. Once we got to Bali, I loved exploring the island and going to school and making new friends. But I became really homesick. I forgot what it felt like to be in that cycle and just remembered the stability that came along with it. I was so homesick at one point, I just wanted to drop everything and go back home. I'm so glad that I didn't. We decided to stay the full year, and when June came, that past year had been the best year of my life. But I felt like it was time to go back home because I wanted to be with my family again. I wanted my job back, and going back to my old school just seemed like it would prepare me better for university, and I knew in my gut that I was making the wrong decision because I knew I would be unhappy again. But I just pushed those feelings aside because I thought that this time things would be different. I went back home and nothing changed. I slipped back into my old routine. I started working 2 jobs and preparing for school in September. My mom noticed how unhappy I was becoming, and I told her everything, how much I wanted to go back and how much I needed to go back. And my amazing parents figured out a way for me to come back to Bali in October. So, I wanted to find out how I could sustain the happiness and the growth that Green School has given me for my life after grad, so I never have to feel like I did before I came to Green School, and so I never have to feel like I'm not actually living my life. Incorrect assumptions and misleading advice lead a lot of people into jobs that they hate. Research was one of the first things I did for my Greenstone. I found out that over 80% of people don't enjoy their jobs from the Gallup survey. I concluded that there's two main steps to finding out what makes you happy. The first step is to know yourself, and I consider this one of the most important steps. Learning what you love, what you want, and what you need. The second step is to do that and to sustain that lifestyle. One of the first things I did towards this was to figure out what type of intelligence I had. Up here behind me, there are 9 types of intelligence. I figured out that I have natural intelligence, meaning I love to learn about and be in the outdoors. I have existential intelligence, meaning that I love to contemplate deep questions about life. And I have kinesthetic intelligence, meaning I learn from movement. So obviously, an office job would never suit me. So not everyone learns the same way, and knowing that the way you learn is really important for finding a job that is going to really challenge you. So another thing I learned about were values. So here's a list of values. Values are your framework for making decisions and the core of what is important to you. So in order to narrow down, or when you narrow down to 3 or 4 values, then you know what's really important in your life. So say one of your values is family. Then you know that you have to have a job that allows you lots of time with your family. You have to work with these values in order to find a job that you will love. So another way to define success for yourself is to think of someone you look up to, a role model, and to think about what they're doing in their life that you could take out of that. So for me, one of my role models, and I'm sure who is a big role model to many of you, is the British anthropologist and primatologist, Jane Goodall. She is inspiring people, she loves what she does, and she's making a difference out there in the world. So I don't just love her because I love what she's doing. I love her because I want to do similar things with my life. I want to make a difference. I want to inspire people. So after learning all these things about myself, I finally decided upon what I wanted to do with my life. And the next step was to figure out, how do I do it, and how do I sustain it? So I decided to ask the community their thoughts and opinions on my topic. One of the things that came up was people said the more negatively they thought about their career, the more negative their situation became. So I wanted to look into this, and I came across a happiness researcher named Sean Anker. And he taught me that by looking at someone's life and just looking at someone's external world, you can actually only predict 10% of their long-term happiness. The other 90% is predicted by the way their brain processes the external world. So another thing he taught me was that 75% of job successes are predicted by optimism levels, social support, and the ability to see stress as a challenge as opposed to a threat. So if you're going to take control of your life, you have to do it with positivity and confidence. Another thing that I learned from the Green School community was a lot of people asked me, if you have a passion and you turn that into a career, will you end up disliking that because you're making money from it? So liking or loving your job is a great thing, but work is still work. Doing something for fun and then doing it as a career are two completely different things. Because one makes you money, and there's a pressure around that. So if I was to find a job that makes me happy, it's not as simple as just taking a hobby and making money from it. You have to make sure it fits with your values, your learning style, and you have to make sure that it really challenges you and excites you. So if I find a job that I love, how am I going to sustain it? Well, the best way to sustain a job that you love is to surround yourself with inspiring, successful, passionate people, people who are on their way to the top. Doing this has already affected my life, making me more positive and have better life goals. As the motivational speaker Jim Rohn said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So take a look around you. Make sure you're surrounded by people that are pushing you forward and not holding you back. So I have one last story to share with you today. And that's about how my old Greenstone idea ties into this. I started off with a Greenstone on fear. It was really fascinating, but I couldn't find a purpose in what I was researching. And I thought, when I changed my Greenstone, all that research was just wasted. But it actually connects now. Because fear should not be avoided. It should be overcome. It's not a bad thing. It can actually help make your life more interesting. It can help you grow as a person. Whether it's the fear of quitting your job to pursue a passion, or doing something you've always wanted to do, like cliff jumping. It feels really good to take those risks and to push past your fear. When you're passionate, motivated, and confident about what you're doing, people will want you for it. People will be attracted to you, and you will find success, fulfillment, and happiness. Thank you.